Welcome to the Help Her Be Brave podcast show, where we have great ideas on how you can help save lives. I'm Amy Ford.
And I'm Jessica Russo.
And today we have an exciting guest that we love so much. Her name is Lisa Robertson. If you've ever watched Duck Dynasty, you know about the Robertson family. And there's one brother. He's not on there as much because he's busy pastoring his church, White's Ferry. And this is Al Robertson's wife, Lisa, which they actually even have an Embrace Grace group at their church, White's Ferry. So that's how we got connected to him. I got to go to Al and Lisa's house, 3 or 4 years ago, and they gathered the pregnancy center in their town, and I think it's in Monroe, Louisiana, and had all of us come together and just brainstorm, and then we launched Embrace Grace at their church. So it's been awesome to work with them because she is so passionate about life. And so I'm just so thankful for her. And we're going to bring her on now. Lisa, you there?
Hey, great to see you guys.
Yeah. Well, I am just so amazed and inspired whenever women that have platforms and are influencers, when they share any kind of vulnerable parts of their story, but especially with abortion and abortion healing and being bold in that, 1 in 4 women have experienced an abortion, and the abortion rate is exactly the same inside the church as it is outside. There's no difference. And so that just proves that there's women in our pews, there's women in our churches that are silently hurting from their past abortion and not really feeling comfortable to share, what their story is. And so the more that people like you share your story, it's just, I feel like it's contagious. More and more people are bold in that. So I'm just so thankful that you do that. And I'd love for you to share with our listeners a little bit about your story.
Okay. And I was going to tell you, you're exactly right, because whenever I speak, a lot of times I have women that come up and they'll say, I've never told anybody that I had an abortion. Right. And it's really, whenever they can share that with someone, it becomes therapeutic. Right. And then, of course, whenever, I talk to them and say, well, you really need to talk to God about this, because they always suffer with it. They suffer so long with the regret and the shame and just, the choice that they made. Yeah. And so, I'm always trying to say, look, talk to God, and even all of the pregnancy centers that we speak at, because we do a lot of that stuff around the country. All of those pregnancy centers have post-abortive care, where you can go in and talk with someone. And so I'm always telling people, please do that, because you need to feel whole again, and you need to feel forgiven. And, we serve a God who can forgive us, even of those terrible things like that. Right. But whenever I was a little girl, I had an uncle who started molesting me at age 7. And that went on until I was about 14. But at age 7, I learned to be dishonest. I learned that I could not tell anybody about the things that were happening to me. And that carried on all through my teenage years. I believe it created a darkness within me. And whenever I was 15, I started dating my husband, but he left about 6 months after we dated, and he was the one that I actually lost my virginity to. But whenever he left, I'm telling you, I just fell apart because, I thought whenever you're 7 and something like that happens, you feel like that you are just the property of men. Yeah. You are there to please men. And whenever my husband came along, he liked me for me. Now, again, there was that, if you love me, you will. But he still acted as though he loved me for me. And so I willingly gave myself to him. So, at that point I thought, well, we'll be together forever.
Yeah.
Well, we weren't.
Right.
We were together 6 months and then he left. But after he left, I just took a tailspin. I mean, it was just terrible. The way I was living my life, the things I was doing. Um, and I started dating this guy who was a few years older than me. And just before my 17th birthday, I found out that I was pregnant. Now, my mom is the one that actually said, you might need to go take a pregnancy test because, I'd get up in the morning time and I'd be sick at my stomach. And I'm like, what is up with this? Never, ever thinking. And I'll just say it. I was not a very smart 16-year-old, but never thinking that I could be pregnant. And so I go to the doctor and find out that for sure that I am pregnant. But I did not, it was not a glorious moment. It was not a joyous moment. And whenever I came home and told my parents, they were not happy. At that time, I really didn't have anybody else to talk to because I didn't have a church that I could talk to. At that point, the way I was living my life, I really was not going to church. I didn't feel as though I belonged in church. I was not worthy of that. It was hard for me to even think that the way that I was living my life, that God could forgive me of, all the things at this point. And so I was not in church at all. And so I didn't have anybody to talk to. So I went and talked to my parents. And my mom said, I believe you need to have an abortion. Well, at that point, I'd never heard the word abortion.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody that ever had one. Every woman that I knew in my life had either had a miscarriage or they had had their baby and brought it home. So at this point, I had not ever heard the word. And so I'm like, what is that, Mom? And she said, well, they just go in and take the tissue out. She said, it's not a baby yet. It's just tissue. And they just go in and take the tissue out. And I was like, okay, I can do that. But I just still did not feel like that was the right thing to do. But, I was thinking, this is what my mom and dad thinks I need to do. And I'm, I really don't want to be pregnant when a baby starts growing in my body. I really don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went ahead and went through with the abortion. But I'm telling you, when I walked in the place, it was so dark and so cold. Just, you were a number, you were not a person. And it was just, I don't know. I tell Alan all the time, because we'll go somewhere and it's cold and he'll say, are you cold? And I'm like, yeah, but still not as cold as I was when I was 16. I've never, ever been that cold in my whole entire life. And I believe it was just, probably I was in shock a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But more than anything, I think it was just maybe God trying to say, don't do this. Get out of this place. This is a dark place. Get out of here. So when I go to the back and I'm talking to him, I'm like, I just don't know if this is the right thing to do. I have so much reservation here. I just don't know. And she said, oh, you'll be fine. This is exactly what you need to do. And that day they told me 3 lies. The first lie, of course, was that it was just tissue and that all they were going to do was take out the tissue. And I know that's not true. I read in Psalms 139. I love that passage, and especially 13 through 16, where he talks about that he knew me in my mother's womb. Well, if he knew me in my mother's womb, then he knew my baby in my womb. He knew me before I was ever even created. And so I know that was the first lie that they told me. The second lie that they told me was that I could leave there and I would be good as new. This was not going to affect me physically. I'm supposed to be on bed rest for a day, and then I'm perfectly fine. I can go and do whatever I want to. Maybe abstain from having sexual relations, for a couple of weeks, but other than that, you'll be fine. Well, I also know that that is not true. That was the second lie. The way that I know this is because I've heard so many women have the same problems. You have problems whenever you do actually decide to get pregnant and have your baby, and I did. My first baby came at 39 weeks. I'm sorry, 29 weeks, and she was 13 inches long. She weighed 1 pound and 15 ounces, and she had heart surgery because she had a heart murmur. My second baby came at almost 4 months early, but they were able to keep her in, put a stitch and keep her in. And then my third baby I lost. So I know deep in my heart that there was something that happened that day that probably injured some part of my body. And then the third lie that they told me that day was, once you leave here, you will be as good as new. You'll not ever have to worry about this. Look, you just go and live your life and don't ever even think of this day again. Well, that was lie number 3, because I aborted my baby. I took something out of my body that was supposed to grow in there, and and even if it didn't grow, that was supposed to be taken by God, not by me. And the shame and the guilt, the regret, I suffered with that until I was 33 years old. And so I know that there are women out there who say, oh, this, it's not so bad. I mean, just go and have an abortion. No, you will suffer with it. At the time, you may be okay. Nothing may not happen. But you are going to suffer. The cancer rate for breast cancer is up for women who have had abortions. So I know in my heart that that day I was lied to. I know girls are being lied to today. And so I want to set the record straight, and just tell people, please do not abort your baby. Please have your baby, even if you give it up for adoption. There is a couple out there that wants it. But if you want to raise it, God will make a way for you to raise that baby also.
Are you looking for a way to love and empower single and pregnant women in your community? We've got the perfect thing for you. Start an Embrace Grace support group at your church. We're on a mission to equip churches across the globe to provide single and pregnant women with emotional, spiritual, and physical support. You and your church can be the answer to their prayers. You can help her be brave and her choice for life. To learn more about how your church can host an Embrace Grace support group, visit www.embracegrace.com.
Yes, for sure. Have you ever thought about, and I know you were so young, but have you ever thought about looking back on that time in your life when you were 16, what maybe you and your family needed in order to make a life decision? Like maybe it was something in the schools, or maybe it was just an awareness more with your mom, or maybe it's education, I don't know. Have you ever thought about like, man, if there was something like this, then back then maybe I wouldn't have made my abortion decision?
Oh, you bet I do. One of the things is that I think it should be in all schools. I think we should have classes on it. Because whenever I had an abortion, I'd never heard of it. So of course I'd never even heard of a pregnancy center, or anything.
Right.
And so I know that a long time ago, those people used to come in and talk to kids in school. Another thing is our churches. Our churches have got to start rallying around families.
Yes.
Families who have unwed daughters, granddaughters. We've got to do a better job of that. We've got to come in and we've got to put our arms around them, and we've got to love these girls because, and I call it a mistake. It's not a mistake. God put that child in your body. The mistake that you made was whenever you got in a situation with someone, and you had sex with someone who was not your husband.
Mm-hmm.
But what God put there was a blessing,
Yes.
and every child, no matter how that child is put in a womb, is a blessing, and it's from God. And so I know that there are things out there. Embrace Grace. We have it at our church. I feel like all churches should have that, because that's just a way for the church to come and rally around these girls, give them showers, teach them classes, teach them to respect themselves
Yeah.
so that they don't get in these circumstances again, and teach them that they're beautiful young women,
Mm-hmm.
and that their baby can have a happy and healthy life with them.
Yeah, that's so true. And I agree with all of those. More education,
Yeah.
the churches rallying around them, and just even putting it out there, churches talking about this issue more and not being scared of talking about it because they feel like it's a political issue. This is an
Right.
issue that affects all of us, and it's about
Mm-hmm.
life and love, and we don't have to be scared to talk about it. And churches should either have an abortion healing group at their church, or to be able to refer to local pregnancy centers that have abortion healing classes in their centers. And then also, of course, Embrace Grace
Of
is
course.
super important, and it's just opening the doors to these moms and saying you're welcome here, and you can talk about what you're going through. And so I'm just so thankful for you using your voice to help save lives, because that's really what you're doing. The more and more you talk about this, the more that more people will remember your story, and
Yes.
and even if it's someone older that has a daughter with an unexpected pregnancy, there we have tons of Embrace Grace girls that maybe have had an abortion in their past, and a lot of times it was encouraged by their parents because either of shame or just maybe not knowing the trauma that can be connected to it. And so, I feel like you're talking to two audiences here, parents that maybe will have a daughter with an unexpected pregnancy, or the girl herself that could potentially have one. So I just thank you so much for all that you do. And how can people connect with your story? Or I know you've got a few books out there. How can people know more about you and connect to what you're doing?
We do. We have some books, and me and my mother-in-law are actually working on a book right now. We are doing our interview with our writer next week about my story and her story. I was 16 and had an abortion. She was 16 and she chose to have her baby, and I'm blessed because I got to marry the baby that she chose to have.
Wow.
And so we're doing a
That's
book about
You're going to
that.
make me cry right now.
That is amazing.
And so we're doing that, and we'll have a little snippet of. I don't know if you guys have heard, but my husband Alan has a sister that we didn't know about.
I have heard
Yes.
about that.
We just found out about her this year, and
Wow.
we are so incredibly grateful that her mom chose life.
Mm-hmm.
Because both parties were married and just separated from their spouses, and we're just thankful every day that we look at her, that her mom chose life. But we have a website. Our website is alandlisarobertson.com. And my husband said, do you think we could have made that any longer? And I said, well, it's your fault. I mean, you're the Robertson. That's where all the letters come from. But yeah, alandlisarobertson.com. We have a blog that we do each week. And then we also, we have guest bloggers on there. And all our books are on there. It'll just send you to where you can get one. But you can also email us at lisa@duckcommander.com. And I would love to talk with anybody who, has a question or is contemplating it and wants to talk about it. This is important. It really
Yes.
is. It will affect you for the rest of your life. So I'm open to talk to anybody.
Okay. Well, that is amazing. Thank you so much for being on today. And we're going to be looking for that book coming out with you and your mother-in-law. That sounds so sweet.
Yes.
That's such a great idea. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lisa, so much.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a
Bye.
great day.
Bye.
Bye.
It's so powerful when someone with influence like Lisa Robertson does in the Christian community just is so vulnerable about their story. You know, it just brings light to dark situations, to dark topics, and it helps other people be brave. And I loved the question that you asked her about, looking back, what would it have taken for your family to make a life decision together? And how powerful is that? Like, I would love to hear more about that from like our listeners that have experienced abortion. Looking back at your stories, what was the thing that you needed? And let us know, like, that's totally something in Embrace Grace that we can really make an impact on.
Yeah, she gave us 3 tangible ideas besides sharing your story about what we can do: the education in schools, the church, and Embrace Grace. Those 3 things, she felt like if she had had one or some of those things, then maybe she wouldn't have made her abortion decision. And that, as listeners, I think that's something that maybe something is stirring your heart in one of those areas that you would want to do, and something we can dig into. And also, you may have ideas like what Jessica said, so you can send those to helperbebrave.com and connect with us there. You can listen to any of our back podcasts and hear some more ideas. Also, you can grab my new book, Help Her Be Brave, Discover Your Place in the Pro-Life Movement. It's available on Amazon and embracegrace.com.
And remember to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes, and share it with everyone.
Yes, everybody needs to know about this. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next time.